Okay, so if you had evidence that the Bible, specifically the Old Testament documents, if you had evidence that the Old Testament was historically true and you're not a Christian right now, would you become a Christian? And I'm asking because Cross Examine, and more specifically Dr. Frank Turek, has been uploading all these videos from his trip to Egypt and Israel. And they've just shown a lot of archaeological evidence that defends and corroborates a lot of the things that are in the Bible. So in this video, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to share some of the shorts that they've been posting recently on their YouTube channel, and you can follow them on Instagram and TikTok and all these other different places too to find more. And there's tons of them. So the few that I'm going to show here is just scratching the surface. So I would definitely recommend that after you watch this video, please go subscribe to Cross Examine and look up more and more artifacts and archaeological evidence for the Old Testament and the Bible. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into it, because when I tell you, I have been ODing on all these videos and I just love them. It's just cool to see like your Bible kind of come alive, especially from somebody who, like Frank Turek, is just, he's really good at teaching these Bible stories and connecting the dots for those of us who've never stepped outside of the country. Yes, I've never been outside of the United States of America. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into these cross-examine videos. So here's the first one.
We're in Jericho, the oldest city in the world. The book of Joshua says that when the Israelites encircled this town and marched around it, the walls just fell straight down and out, creating a ramp. That's what the archaeologists found. John Garstang in the 1930s, Kathleen Kenyon in the 1950s found that the wall came tumbling down and created a ramp. You're looking at an excavated area where the mud bricks just came straight down. By the way, the only city in the world we know that has happened to is here. Whenever you siege a city, you'd normally put a battering ram up against it and knock the walls in. Not here in Jericho. All the walls just came straight down, except for one section in the north where Rahab allegedly lived, according to the Bible. In any event, you see that dark area right down there? That's the burn layer from 1406, the biblical dating for the Exodus. And Kathleen Kenyon's dating of the 1550 is shown to be false, because they found in this city not only the proper pottery to date the burn at about 1400, but also pharaohs from Egypt that went all the way up to Amenhotep III. Amenhotep III ended his reign about 1424 BC. How could they find scarabs in a city that had been abandoned for more than 100 years for Amenhotep III? They couldn't. Amenhotep III was in power, and the scarabs from Egypt came here, and then the city was burned in 1406. That's the burn layer for it. The Bible is telling the truth about Jericho, which should tell you what? Joshua's an eyewitness account. How would anybody 1,000 years later, as the liberals say, oh, they say Joshua was written 1,000 years later. How would they know what happened archaeologically at Jericho 1,000 years after it happened? They wouldn't. The Bible's telling the truth.
I love that. Okay, so they have real evidence that Jericho is like a real place. And the fact that you can see the burn layer, to me, is insane. And I actually went to Frank. Sometimes he does these in-person Bible studies. So I was able to visit one recently where he was talking about the walls of Jericho, and the place where Rahab is said to have lived in that wall, that is the only wall that's still standing. So to see the picture of that was pretty cool. So if you ever get the opportunity to go see Frank speak live, I definitely would recommend you do that. Okay, here's the next one. This isn't really, I don't think this is technically about anything written about in the Old Testament, but it's still pretty cool and also kind of creepy. So just check this out.
We're underground in Saqqara, Egypt, in what they think was a cemetery for animals. There are 24 of these sarcophagi that are about 100 tons. That's 200,000 pounds. This one in 1951 was moved here. 200 men. It took 2 years to go about 60 yards with this. They tried to get it out of this tunnel and they couldn't, so they left it here. How these sarcophagi got down here is a complete mystery. We have no idea how they got down here. In the 1800s, one of them had a bowl, a mummy of a bull in it. The other 23 have nothing in them. So it's a great mystery, maybe a mystery as big as the pyramids. We can't even, with modern technology, get the sarcophagi out of this tunnel. And could it be the Nephilim? It's possible. Giants, we have no idea, but it's one of the great mysteries of Egypt. That is the sarcophagus that they tried to get out of here using 500 men in 1951. They moved it 60 yards. It weighs 70 tons. They couldn't get it out. Here is the top to that sarcophagus. This weighs 30 tons. They tried to turn the corner here to get it out that door, and they couldn't do it, so they just left it. Even with modern technology, we can't move these amazing sarcophagi. They're 100 tons. It's a mystery how they got down here. We're underground in Saqqara, Egypt.
See what I mean by creepy? Y'all let me know in the comments. Do you think that the Nephilim are responsible for these big rocks underground? I would be interested to hear any theories that y'all might have. I don't know, but I just think it's crazy that even with modern technology, they can't figure out how they got down there or how to get them out. Weird. Okay, here's the next one.
This is one of the storehouses where the foundation is still intact. You can see this is straw brick right here. In fact, these bricks right here are all put together with mud and straw. These were not put together by the Israelites, they came later. But that pyramid right there for Amen-en-Hot III, who was a pharaoh whom Joseph served, his pyramid is made of these mud straw bricks, as are these storage facilities, which have since caved in. I mean, it's been 3,900 years. Look at all of these that have caved in over the period of time that they've been here, 3,900 years. In fact,
okay, so y'all know the story in the Bible about Joseph being sold into slavery, and then he eventually became, I'm just going to use the movie title, kind of like the Prince of Egypt, like the second in command of Egypt. And he helped preserve the life of all these people, including his own brothers who threw him up under the bus. He helped preserve them and saved all these people from the famine by creating all these storehouses. So the fact that the storehouses are still there, even though they're caved in, is pretty cool. Okay.
In about 300 BC, many of these were converted into tombs from Alexander the Great's period, when the Greeks came in here, and later the Romans used these as tombs. In fact, the Greeks began to mummify their dead, and one archaeologist found over 300 mummies in this area. So these storage facilities were converted to graves. But the bigger point here is this is the area that Joseph put aside all the grain to save Egypt between 1800 and 1900 BC.
Okay, moving right along. This is probably one of my favorite ones, and you'll see here in just a second why.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most amazing archaeological discoveries in history related to the Bible. This is the Merneptah Stele. There was a pharaoh in Egypt by the name of Merneptah. He came right after Ramses II. And this stela, this victory statement, comes from 1208 BC. So this thing is over 3,200 years old. And if you look down here, you can see how it's kind of worn more black because people were actually touching the inscription that mentioned that Israel as a nation had been laid waste by Pharaoh Merneptah in 1208 BC. Well, how could that be if the Exodus took place in the 1200s, like many people say? The much more consistent date for the Exodus, according to the Bible and archaeology, is the Exodus took place in the 1400s BC, particularly according to the Bible, 1446 BC. That would have given the Israelites enough time to get into the land and become a nation, so later Merneptah could brag that he had beaten them. This is amazing. It's 3,200 years old, and it's got Israel on it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is...
Okay, so that's something outside of the Bible from non-Christians who have basically stamped Israel in their history by trying to take a dig at him. It's like, man, won't he do it? Won't the Lord do it? Using evil for good. Okay.
We are on the other side of the Valley of the Kings. The kings are buried on the other side of this mountain. On this side are noble people that weren't kings, but were high officials. One high official was Rekhmire, who happened to be second in charge to both Thutmose III, who was the king or the pharaoh that wanted Moses dead, and Amenhotep II, his son, who became the pharaoh and was the pharaoh of the Exodus. Inside this tomb we're going to go into, we're going to see evidence of slaves making straw bricks right at the time of the Exodus. Let's take a look. We're in the Rekhmire tomb, just on the other side of the Valley of the Kings. This is where they buried nobles about the time of the Exodus. In fact, this tomb is thought to have been completed in 1450 BC, 4 years prior to the Exodus. This tomb was for the second in charge of both Thutmose III and Amenhotep II. Thutmose III is the pharaoh that wanted Moses dead. Amenhotep II is the pharaoh of the Exodus, and in this tomb you have Semitic, or at least non-Egyptian slaves making mud bricks right at the time of the Exodus. This tomb has a connection to the Bible, and if you're going to say that the Bible is wrong about these people being enslaved, you also have to say that Egypt is wrong about these people being enslaved.
Well, well, well. Okay. Here's the next one. Dead bodies discovered out at Mount Sinai.
We're about 4 miles from Jabal el-Lawz in Saudi Arabia, the ancient land of Midian. Jabal el-Lawz could be the real Mount Sinai. Some circumstantial evidence that it could be is this graveyard, which is currently being excavated by Japanese archaeologists, could be the graveyard where about 3,000 Israelites were buried after they worshiped the golden calf. They were killed there. See Exodus 32 for more on this. The reason these tombs are marked with red paint is because the archaeologists are marking where they've excavated. Now, this hasn't been completely excavated yet, but it fits with the data. In fact, Muslims do not allow standing stones, so we know this is pre-Islam. In fact, it goes all the way back to the Bronze Age, some researchers say. Dr. Glenn Fritz did a lot of work in this area and says this is good circumstantial evidence that this could be the land where the Israelites buried those who were judged for worshiping the golden calf.
Very interesting, even if it is circumstantial. Now, this one is another one of my favorites, and it's the last one. So here we go.
We're in Saudi Arabia, the land of Midian. This could be, on this natural rock formation, the place where Aaron built and they worshiped the golden calf. You can see this bull petroglyph in front of me. There are scores of these all over this rock formation here. And right behind me, that blackened peak could be Mount Sinai, now known as Jabal el-Lawz. By the way, this petroglyph is a representation of a cow. It could make sense that the Hebrews, who are in Egypt for 430 years, are back to worshiping a golden calf because the Egyptians had a cow god known as Hathor. Hey, there's one other thing that's interesting. This entire rock formation has been fenced off by the Saudi government. Why? They know there's something here. Is it the altar where they worship the golden calf? We don't know, but it sure is interesting.
I agree. I find it very interesting. The question is, do y'all find it interesting? If you're a skeptic, does any of this information make you think, huh, maybe I should research the Bible more? Or maybe I haven't really considered if the Bible is actually historically true? Y'all let me know in the comments. And Christians, if you have if this information is new to you, let me know. I would love to know if I'm the only person who was like, I had no idea any of this stuff existed. And yeah, I find it really interesting. So that's all I have for you guys in this video. Like I said, please go subscribe to Cross Examine. Listen to Frank's podcast. He always has really amazing guests on the show. Dr. Titus Kennedy is an archaeologist. He had him on there recently. So there's a lot of different things that just kind of show that the Bible it's not just good, but like it's historically true. And there's a lot of evidence to back up the things that are written in our Bible. I love that. So anyway, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I will catch y'all on the next one.